Hello, welcome to the channel Why Stories. Enjoy watching.
Thanks for the ride. Keep the change. Eva paid the cab driver and got out of the car. This time she came home early from her business trip. She quickly ran up the stairs and silently opened the door with her key. But what she heard at home made her heart race. You know, I'm sick of her. I can't take it anymore. I just can't. All these tender words and glances, I'm disgusted even by her presence. I swear, I'm disgusted. Can a woman be that stupid? She doesn't even realize that I don't want her as a woman. She's away on a business trip, and I'm really happy. I wish she had never come back. It's bad to think that way, I know, it's terrible, but I want that damn plane to crash somewhere. Eva, who opened the front door at the beginning of this monologue after listening to all that had been said, quietly shut it again. She covered her face with her hands, leaned against the cold concrete wall of the entryway, and trembled, barely able to control her sobs. Her knees trembled, and her face burned with anger, shame, and horror. This was what her family life was really like. This was how her beloved husband treated her. The man she had been happily married to for 4 years, that's how it seemed to her all those years. Who was he talking to? Eva thought in despair. With a mistress? With a friend? Who had he been spending those 3 days with while I was away on a business trip? My God, how disgusting. Why couldn't he tell her how he really felt? If he became cold to her, if he felt disgusted by her, as he told this unknown person he was talking to, why would he lie to her for so long? And actually, how long has this deception been going on? Eva felt like she was going to vomit with horror and disgust. What had she done wrong to be treated this way? Isn't she beautiful? Isn't she clever? Does her husband ever feel ashamed of her when they are together in public places, in company, in a restaurant, with their friends? Why didn't she notice anything? She was sure their relationship was perfect. After all, they got married because they loved each other. No, she wasn't wrong. She couldn't be wrong. He loved her, really loved her. A woman always recognizes true feelings. When did she disappoint him so much? She always takes care of herself, looks great, and dresses according to the latest fashion. And even though her age is approaching 30, she catches the admiring glances of men. He must have a mistress. There's no other way to explain everything she overheard so suddenly and unwittingly. Yet he hid his disgust very well. But why? Why didn't he tell the truth, demand a divorce? Eva nervously wrung her hands, standing in the cold entryway. Suddenly, she realized how stupid she looked. What if her neighbors saw her now, standing with a suitcase near her apartment in tears? God, what a shame. I have to do something. There was no way she could go home after what she'd heard. She just couldn't. But where should she go? To her parents' house? No, absolutely not. Her mother will try to calm her down, ask stupid questions, lecture her, and maybe even scold her. She even shook her head as she imagined it all. Besides, it would be easy for Crispin to find her at her parents' house, and she had absolutely no intention of seeing him anytime soon. Will he even try to find her? It's no big deal. The unloved wife is gone, an unwanted, annoying, disgusting wife. Eva remembered the expressions that Crispin generously shared with his mysterious friend, and she felt sick with self-pity, burning resentment, and anger. No, she would not go to her parents or her friends. Grabbing her suitcase, Eva stepped into the elevator, pushed the button with trembling fingers, the doors closed, and the cabin moved to the first floor. I won't go back. I'll never go back to him. I'll never see him again. Her temples throbbed and tears streamed down her cheeks nonstop. Eva called a cab and quickly jumped into the passenger seat and shocked the driver, answering his question of where to with an angry yell. To hell. No problem, I can take you even there. The driver was humorous and, without asking any more questions, drove off out of the yard. In the evening, Crispin tried to call his wife, but the phone was off, and he got worried, and in the morning he called everyone who might have had any contact with Eva or know about her plans. But there was no result. Out of anxiety and rage, answering questions from the policeman on duty for the 5th time, he started a scandal in the police department. "Mister, please, calm down," the officer said. "It's not our fault, so control your emotions, please. Now we will make a report with your wife's picture and send it to all the police stations. Calm down, it happens very often." And the policeman smirked. "What do you mean?" Crispin frowned. "That my wife ran away from me? Listen, you. Insulting an officer is a crime, so pull yourself together." Another police officer entered the room. He had a higher rank. Breathing heavily, he sat down in the old chair. Crispin was silent. He realized that everything was in vain. "Go home and wait for your wife," the senior officer said, sighing lazily. "There's about a 40% chance of this sort of case being solved. Understand? Meanwhile, you can call the morgues and hospitals. Well, our guys will look for her, too. If we find out anything, we'll let you know. We'll do everything we can, so to speak." "I see," Crispin said with quiet fury. "Good luck." And he walked out, slamming the door. "I'm sick of these cuckolds," the policeman grinned. "She'll spend some time with her lover, and then she'll come back home. That's it. Let's go for a smoke break." After driving for half an hour with the cab driver in an almost hysterical state, Eva came to her senses a little and muttered, "Let's go to the river house. Anything you want for your money." The cheerful driver replied and turned the car around at the nearest stoplight. The River House was a famous hotel, comfortable, with a good view from the panoramic windows, with a very decent restaurant, a fitness center, a spa, and a golf lawn. Eva often visited the cosmetologist here. She could afford it, as well as everything else. She was the only daughter of wealthy parents, and she was used to good life since she was a child. She never counted the money, but she didn't waste a lot of money either. Eva studied at one of the best universities in the country. She chose the Faculty of Design, and after university, with her father's help and money, she started her own business, selling fashionable Italian clothes. The business was going great, the company was growing and prospering, and Eva often traveled abroad on business trips. It turns out that while she was getting new contracts with clothing manufacturers, her precious husband found another woman. "Oh, well, she'll be smarter now." Eva gave the driver a generous tip and, without listening to his happy thanks, steadily walked to the reception desk. "Good evening, how may we help you?" The receptionist smiled. "I need a room," Eva said, taking off her gloves. "For a day, with an option to extend to the next day." "Sure, wait a second," she readily nodded. "What's your name?" "Emilia Flores," Eva said, muttering the first thing that came into her head. "Is that all right?" Of course, the polite hotel clerk had seen all sorts of things. "Room 502. Your bags will be there in a moment. Is there anything else you need?" "No," Eva shook her head. "Later." When Crispin returned home, he spent 2 hours on the phone, calling morgues and hospitals. He also called Gonzalo, an old friend, and explained the situation, asking him to come over so he could at least have someone to drink with because he was really nervous. Gonzalo arrived quickly, and in half an hour he was already sitting at the kitchen table with a bottle of English gin. "Did you two have a fight the night before?" he asked. "No, of course not," Crispin said. "Everything was fine. I waited for her. I left work early and bought champagne. Then Vito called, and we had a conversation. Eva should have been home by then, but she never arrived." "What's your business with Vito?" "I'm just getting annoyed with some woman." Crispin sighed and drank his glass in one fell swoop. "My boss, damn. It is so annoying to have a female boss. She scolds you every time you do something wrong?" Gonzalo grinned. "If only. It's much worse. She flirts with me. Can you imagine? What the hell does she think she's doing?" I have a wife I love. But where is she now? Crispin sighed heavily, and his friend comforted him. They spent almost the whole night talking, and towards dawn they finally collapsed, defeated by sleep. But despite the exhaustion, Crispin could not fall asleep at once. Heavy thoughts haunted him. Where could his wife have gone? The only people he hadn't called were her parents. Maybe he should have called. Maybe something had happened to them. But in that case, she would have called him and told him everything. No, something was wrong. Eva, his beloved Eva, his little girl, would never do that to him. Everything is great, and it couldn't be better. A spacious, beautiful apartment, wealth, perfect relationships, and business is going well. At the same time, Crispin also does not waste time and does not live at the expense of his wife. He does not have his own company, but he is a successful and well-paid manager, head of sales of one of the largest car companies. The only problem is that annoying woman, his boss. He was so sick and tired of her. But he really loved his job, and it would be stupid to quit. He made good money here, and besides, he didn't want to live at Eva's expense, but rather he always wanted to provide for her, to make her life perfect. But that boss. Anyway, he'll solve the problem somehow. He tried to call Eva again, but there was no change. The phone was off. In the morning, Eva went to the gym, then to the swimming pool and ordered breakfast, and after that, she thought about yesterday's events in a more relaxed state. Since Crispin doesn't love her anymore, she wouldn't even try to make up with him. It felt very painful and disgusting inside. It is hard to realize that she, such a flawless woman in every way, may be unwanted. But whatever happened, happened. She's still young, beautiful. She has money, she can handle anything. And love? Well, she'll have to forget that feeling. Good thing she and Crispin have no children. It would be terrible to pretend that everything is fine for the sake of the child. Fortunately, they can just divorce in one day and never see each other again. But she will not let him humiliate her, no way. He won't get any explanations. Let him think she's the one who broke up with him. Cheered up this way, Eva called a friend who lived nearby and asked her to go check if Crispin was home. Actually, he should be at work right now, but he might not be. Finding that the battlefield is empty, Eva arrived at the apartment, packed her bags in half an hour, ruthlessly looked around her former cozy family dwelling, and left. She left her key on the table and simply slammed the door shut. It's no big deal if he gets robbed, so be it. Eva did not leave a note for her husband, and she already considered him her ex. Then she took her car from the parking lot near the building, which she wisely avoided driving yesterday. Yesterday she was in a terrible condition, and she just couldn't drive. Otherwise, she would have done something bad. She drove to her office and informed the surprised staff that she was moving to another city. Here she appointed an executive director instead of herself. She took the cash, the seal, and the company records out of the safe and went to her parents to inform them about the change in her marital status. She had no idea where she wanted to go. But she certainly decided that no one would know about it until the time comes. Mom, Dad, hi. Are you home? It was quiet in the empty hallway of her parents' mansion, not even her mother's little dog barking, as she usually did when the door opened or the doorbell rang. Eva headed to the backyard and found them both, her mother busy with the flower beds, and her father relaxing at the table with a cocktail in his hand. Oh, sweetheart. He put his drink away and got up to hug her. You look wonderful. Darling, look who came to see us. Mother was already hurriedly taking off the gardening gloves stained with soil. Eva, honey. Did you arrive yesterday, right? Yes, Mammy. Eva kissed her mother on the cheek. How are you doing here? Well, as usual. Everything is fine. How about you, sweetheart? Everything is fine at work, Eva smiled. Here, I got you a present. Check out the color. She dug in her bag and handed her mother an elegant box, tied with satin ribbon. Her mother unwrapped it and pulled out a pair of liquor gloves of a marvelous lilac color. My goodness, it's so beautiful. The mother gasped. These Italians know how to do that. Try it, it's your size. Should match perfectly, or I'll file a complaint against them, Eva laughed again. Eventually, the gloves fit perfectly. And yet, dear daughter, is something wrong with you? Her mother asked after a couple of minutes, seeing the sadness in her daughter's eyes. Actually, yes, something happened. Eva decided to reveal everything right away. I left Crispin. Why? The mother was shocked. What is it? What happened? Her father grumbled, not happy with the bad news on such a beautiful morning. He's cheating on me, Eva said calmly. Are you sure? Mother asked, looking intently into her face. Yes, Mom. I have heard Crispin tell someone that he can no longer tolerate my presence. So. And Eva nervously broke the straw from her cocktail. Well, Dad began, you know, honey, you might have got it all wrong. Dad, Eva said angrily, put aside this unnecessary male solidarity. Do you think I'm stupid? Sorry, darling, you are right, the father raised his palms, acknowledging his daughter's rightness. But maybe you can still save your marriage. That's it. Eva said decisively, and after a short pause, she added, it's better to finish. Now, while we are not yet tied up in anything. Her mother's eyes were already wet. Stop it, please, Mom, don't cry. Eva hugged her shoulders. I am alive and well. Just parting with my husband. What's the big deal? And she tried to look lighthearted. It would be bad for him, not me. You're on my side, aren't you? Well, what are you talking about, baby? Of course, I'm on your side, her mother cried even more, snuggling into her shoulder. Don't cry, it's all right, Eva persuaded her. You'd better listen to what I am going to say. And she told them about her plans. Then she and her mother went for a walk in the garden, and Eva had to listen to all of her mother's valuable advice that any mother feels it necessary to give to her daughter. After that, Eva took a little nap on the chaise longue, had lunch with her parents to make them finally calm down, and left. And please, she told them, saying goodbye, don't tell him anything about the reason why I left. Let him think it was me who had left him. I don't want to look like a victim. That bastard will regret what he did. Her father turned red with anger. He won't dare come here. Dad, please don't do anything, his daughter stopped him. There's no need for that now. Just don't tell him anything about my plans. It's none of his business now. I'll send my lawyer to him. Prenuptial agreement was the right decision, her father said to his wife when Eva left the house. Do you remember that you were against it? And I always said, love comes and goes, and property should be protected in the first place. Do you see where it is now, their eternal love? Yes, the wife agreed sorrowfully, you were right, Ignacio. Exactly. Her father muttered with satisfaction. When Crispin returned from work, he saw that all of his wife's belongings had disappeared, and her keys were lying on the table. Seriously? He yelled to nobody knows who, throwing dishes one by one on the floor. So that's what you decided to do to me, huh? She could have at least left a note. She acted as if I am not human, and I have no feelings. So, everything we had between us didn't mean anything to her. I always knew, that I meant nothing to her. The only things that matter to this family are their cars, garages, and money. Crispin poured himself a glass of whiskey and collapsed heavily on the leather sofa. How could she throw it all away like that? In an instant, without explanation? What had he done to her? They hadn't even had a single serious fight. And why would they fight? He had never even looked at any other women. Next to his beloved Eva, any woman was like a gray mouse. Ah, Eva. What have you done? He couldn't stand it and decided to call her parents. Anything was better than uncertainty. They must be the ones who convinced her. Crispin remembered his father-in-law's constant scorn, his mother-in-law's comments, and sidelong glances. After all, what was he to them? Just a boy, greedy for other people's wealth. But he had never needed their money. He earned good money himself. He may not have a fortune and a garage full of fancy cars like her daddy, but give him time. Hello, Ignacio Gonzalez, good evening. Tell me, is Eva at your place right now? No? I see. Can you tell me where she might be? Oh, really? Well, she didn't bother to tell me where she was going either. Yes. Yesterday I almost went crazy. I called all the morgues and spent half the night in the police. Crispin started shouting into the phone, but then her mother picked up the phone. With a trembling voice, she told him that Eva had left and said she would never come back. She didn't even tell us anything. And sobbed, "What happened, Crispin?" "I don't know, Ana Gonzalez. I really don't know." "I thought you could tell me something," Crispin almost cried, touched by her frank sadness. She had never called him that before. Eva's parents could not understand what was happening in the soul of Crispin's dear wife. Meanwhile, Eva was sitting in a cafe with her closest friend, smiling faintly. Her friend talked nonstop about all sorts of nonsense, as usual. So, I show her my nail, and she says, "Sorry, but all the manicurists are busy until the end of the day." Can you believe it? I'm a regular customer, my nail fell off, and she says, "They are busy." And she didn't even offer to wait, bitch. I wish I had your problems, Eva thought to herself and said out loud. "Gloria, honey, just don't go to that beauty salon anymore. I'll give you the number of my manicurist. She's busy until the new year, but I'm leaving, moving to another city, so you'll come instead of me from now on." "Really? Thank you, darling." Gloria didn't even realize right away what Eva had told her. "And what about you? Where are you going? Are you going on another business trip? On vacation? Or maybe on another cruise?" She closed her eyes dreamily, and Eva barely caught a second to say a word. "Gloria, I'm leaving for good." "Oh, really? Where are you going?" Gloria blinked her eyes. "Are you moving abroad?" "No. I'm divorcing Crispin." "Oh, my gosh." She gasped. "Why, what happened?" She pricked up her ears, getting ready to hear the juicy details. "Our relationship is at a dead end," Eva said, smiling coldly. "So, goodbye." "Goodbye." Shocked Gloria stared at her. "Well, at least text me when you get settled." "I will," Eva assured her. My God, why is everyone so narrow-minded? She thought, taking a bite out of a puff pastry. Absolutely no one to talk to. In fact, I have no friends, everyone's just jealous. Sighing heavily, Eva got up and said goodbye to Gloria, citing her busyness. But, at least now the whole city will know I'm leaving, she thought as she drove back in the car to the hotel. It was hot in the capital, too hot. It was impossible to go to the beach during the day. Eva woke up early, though she didn't like getting up too early. She spent half an hour jogging along the promenade, then went for a swim before the sun got too hot, and returned to the hotel for breakfast and to hide from the heat in the lobby bar. By evening she would go into the city, wandering through the stores, looking at goods and souvenirs. During the day, Eva dozed with the blinds closed and the air conditioner on full blast. She always ate dinner at the same restaurant, Little Langustin. She loved that place, and the staff responded in kind, providing top-notch service to the wealthy lady. Maybe I should try to find her, man, she thought. But after thinking about it, she gave up the idea. Who can I even have an affair with? With clingy Italian gigolos, who would do anything for money? She regularly observes a couple like this during breakfast, a very fat frau who wants some adventure. She met a young Italian boy. He smiles at her and fulfills all her wishes. And every time the German lady turns away, he stares at pretty young girls. He has already undressed Eva with his eyes. What a bastard. Maybe one of the tourists? The decent guys came with wives, although they are also looking for other women, tired of their wives and mistresses. and Crispin also tired of her. Such thoughts brought tears to Eva's eyes. One brisk waiter once noticed her sadness and worriedly asked, "What made the lady so sad? Was it our cuisine? If so, if anything is not cooked properly, our chef will cut off his finger from grief." Eva laughed and assured the waiter that there was absolutely no danger to the chef's fingers. Their food was brilliant, and she will definitely come back to this restaurant many more times. He smiled and left, and 10 minutes later he returned, but not alone. The chef came from the kitchen along with his whole team. They thanked Eva for choosing their restaurant again and offered her a beautiful gourmet dessert. Eva smiled and accepted the present. When everyone left, at first she was reluctant, picking at the dessert with a fork, but she gladly ate it all, which rarely happened to her. Eva took care of her physical appearance, and she never let herself eat too much sugar. After paying the bill and leaving a significant tip, to the delight of the waiter, she did not forget about the chef. She personally went into the kitchen and handed him the money. And then, in the heat of the kitchen, she felt a slight nausea. Probably too much sugar. I shouldn't have eaten the whole dessert, Eva thought. Going back out on the terrace, Eva drank a glass of water. She felt better. It's time to give up eating desserts, Eva decided, and to her surprise, she realized that she would love to have another such dessert right now. And she ran out of the restaurant completely overwhelmed by the vagaries of her body. This had never happened to her before. She walked along the promenade, looked at the street acrobats, gave them some coins, and slowly wandered back to the hotel. But before she even entered her room, the same thing happened again. This time she felt even more nauseous. A worried Eva stared into the fogged-up mirror above the sink, breathing heavily and thinking that she would hardly visit little Langustin again. In the morning, when she came for breakfast, she was not even close to the counter with all the sweets she normally didn't eat, but she could smell the sweet smell of them. She felt nauseous again. She left the restaurant and went straight to the doctor. The result was shocking. Eva was pregnant. That evening, in deep thoughtfulness, she went to stroll along the empty, twilight beach. The weather had finally changed, and gray clouds were approaching from the mountains, threatening to flood the city with rain by midnight. This evening picture of the gray, gloomy sky was similar to the picture that emerged in Eva's soul. So, we've finally made it, she thought, sitting motionless, like a marble statue, on the warm sand. Right now she didn't care if her clothes got dirty, or if the wind will ruin her beautiful neat hairstyle. She and Crispin had been trying for a long time to have a baby, but it didn't work. They even considered seeing a doctor, but that's how it turned out. Now she will have a baby, but not a husband. Why can't fate be kind enough to give a person everything they need to be happy? Why is it necessary to be deprived of something? Or is it done on purpose, so that we realize the value of everything we have and enjoy it? But is there anything good about a child growing up without a father? Contradictory feelings overcame Eva that night on the distant coast, which looked like a real paradise. There were no worries, no problems, and no burdens. And on the other hand, wasn't she happy that she was finally going to have a baby? A little, vulnerable, tender little baby, to whom Eva will give all that she has and all her love. Isn't that enough to be happy? After all, the main thing for the baby is a mother's love. A mother's gentle touch, a mother's protection. I'll give birth to this baby, and then we'll see, Eva decided and calmed down. For now, there was no need to inform anyone about it, including Crispin. After all, it's her body and the tiny little human, no bigger than a pea. It's just her own secret for now. When she returns, she will tell her mother and no one else yet. But the next day Eva changed her mind. What's the big deal? Pregnant women tend to change their minds. It's the hormones and other things. She won't go home, and she won't even tell her mother yet. She's going to the city of her dreams. Why didn't she think of that in the first place? That's where she wants to live. She loves that huge, unbelievably beautiful city so much. She decided to settle down there, away from Crispin and sad memories. And she will think about whether to tell him about the baby. 3 days later, she wandered along the other promenades along the river. As always, her favorite city made her feel good, and she was in a peaceful, relaxed mood. After a lazy weekend full of peace and slow walks along the quiet, beautiful streets, she went to a real estate office and made a request for a good apartment, certainly with a bay view. She decided to rent it for now. The realtors were very happy to see a wealthy client. They immediately got to work, offering Eva a cup of coffee. "Do you have orange syrup?" Eva asked demandingly. "Unfortunately, no," the girl said sadly, "but we have oranges and orange juice." "Sounds great," Eva said. Actually, she really wanted both coffee and oranges and juice and everything else as much as possible. Her eating habits had changed and her appetite was brutal. Eva began to eat the orange but suddenly felt a sharp pain in her upper jaw. Oh no! When the kids come, the teeth go. She immediately remembered her mother's old saying. After leaving the realtor's office, Eva went straight to the dental clinic. She was nervous and trembling. Eva had been afraid of dentists since childhood. But you can't postpone things like an acute toothache. At the reception desk, a girl smiling with perfect white teeth asked her to wait. "You're here without an appointment, so you have to wait until one of the doctors is finished with the patient." "Yes, sure." "Yes, we understand." "Don't worry, we'll do our best." 15 minutes later, this happy event finally happened and a doctor was waiting for her in office 117. Eva took a deep breath, feeling nauseous again, and walked down the hallway. The first second she opened the door, she thought she'd gotten the wrong room number and ended up in the cinema room. She saw the following picture: her favorite Hollywood actor, shining with a wide white-toothed smile and gorgeous soft brown eyes, was telling something to a little curly-haired girl, showing her an enlarged model of a tooth and an equally huge toothbrush. "And now let's see how Tina has learned her lesson," he announced in a deep, velvet voice, and handed the shiny tool to the girl. Eva dropped into a chair by the door. "Wait, please," the nurse said quietly to her. "A couple of minutes and we'll invite you in." Eva obediently got up from the chair, and at that moment the doctor turned to the door and met her gaze. "It's okay, we're done now. Will Tina brush her teeth properly from now on?" He turned to the girl again. "Yes, doctor," Tina nodded seriously. Her mother, sitting in the chair on the other side of the door, was glowing with pride. And Eva suddenly imagined herself taking her child to the doctor's office soon, just like that. Tears immediately came to her eyes. "Then we'll give you a diploma for the tooth fairy," the doctor said and nodded to the nurse. She immediately pulled out a colorful piece of paper from a drawer and quickly wrote the little patient's name there. Mother and daughter left the office full of joy. "Well, now it's your turn," the doctor invited Eva. Eva felt shivery, nauseous, and still had tears in her eyes. She was afraid of dentists, and her pregnancy only made the fear worse. "What's the matter with you?" The doctor looked into her face. "Are you so afraid of me?" His eyes were very close to hers. "My God, I hope I don't faint. This is the most stupid situation." Eva pulled herself together and said, "I'm pregnant." The doctor was confused. "Perhaps you made a mistake and you should go to another doctor," he said politely. "Seriously?" Eva said angrily. "Do you think I'm out of my mind?" She said out loud the same phrase that had just flashed through the doctor's head. "I know exactly where to go in my situation," Eva said, squinting nervously. "But I came to you because I have a toothache." She sighed heavily. "Then you're in the right place," the doctor smiled again with a magnificent smile. "I assure you, there is no need to be afraid. We will help you quickly and painlessly, and you won't even notice anything." "Wait," Eva stopped his enthusiasm. "You can't do anything without a good anesthetic, but it's not good for the baby." "What week of pregnancy are you now?" the doctor asked, becoming professionally serious. "I don't see any problem. Anesthesia can be harmful in the middle of the pregnancy. Some options are acceptable at the beginning and close to the end. We'll give you the right dose. You'll have to be patient for a while." "There you go." Half an hour later, Eva was sitting in the hall, coming to her senses. Indeed, the doctor turned out to be an expert. Everything went perfectly, but she still felt a little dizzy after the anesthesia. This had happened before. So she tried to relax and waited for it to pass. She was just about to leave when suddenly she heard a voice behind her. "Eva, wait, please." She turned around, surprised, and saw her doctor. "I fell in love with you at first sight," he informed her, smiling slightly. "Really?" Eva laughed. "Yes," he nodded, not smiling anymore, but his eyes still gave him away. "Let's have dinner together tonight. I know a great restaurant downtown with fantastic cuisine. I'm sure you haven't been there yet." "I bet I've been there before," Eva agreed. Since she'd been to this beautiful city so often, she'd visited almost all the best places. "But I can't go. I can't eat or drink for 2 hours after the procedure," she sighed. "We'll take a walk and wait," the man said excitedly. "We can go for a boat ride." "Sounds exciting," Eva said, "but no. I need to stick to my eating and sleeping schedule. Have you forgotten that I am preparing to become a mother?" "How could I forget?" the doctor responded. "And what would you say if I suggested that we prepare together?" "What do you mean?" Eva was impressed by the insistence. Actually, she was pleased by his attention, but her personality and steady habits prevented her from accepting the stranger's proposal. "As you wish," the doctor said cheerfully. "We can walk, we can swim together. Sunbathe too, but not too much. It's not good for you to be in the sun for a long time. We can go to mothers-to-be classes together. By the way, I can recommend a great specialist. So, what do you think?" the doctor asked the surprised Eva. "Will it work? Did it ever occur to your mind that I might be married?" Eva asked him innocently and sarcastically. "Of course, it did," the doctor said. "But if I were your husband, I wouldn't let you go anywhere alone, because you are carrying a baby under your heart. I would tie you to me with a rope and follow you everywhere." "With a rope?" Eva laughed. "Certainly," the doctor replied without the slightest embarrassment. "What is going on? This is flirting. Real flirting." She realized, and suddenly she felt relaxed, cheerful, and free. "Well, dear doctor. By the way, I don't know your name." "Jorge," he interrupted her, leaning towards her confidentially, as if giving away a family secret. "Jorge Sanchez." And moving his shoes together, clicked his heels and sharply bowed his head. "Just call me Jorge." And he looked with velvet, ironic eyes right into Eva's heart. At least, that's what it seemed to her. She'd already forgotten what she wanted to tell him. She just stood there staring, and then she came to her senses and said with a laugh, "Jorge? Just like that? I don't understand your irony." He pretended to be offended, looking like a bear that had been robbed of its honey. "Are you hinting at something?" Eva, barely able to stand on her feet with laughter, was about to give up. They drove all over the canals, riding in a beautiful carriage pulled by a sad white horse that Jorge, who knew the neighborhood like the back of his hand, had found in some back alley. They got soaked in a quick summer rain and dried in a warm bar with the incomparable name of Tavern Pluck Your Eye, where Jorge offered her a hot mulled wine, claiming that in the process of heating all the alcohol evaporated, leaving only the usefulness. Finally, he took Eva to the hotel. In some imperceptible and impossible way, he found out her address, which she had absolutely no intention of telling him. "Well, get some rest now, darling. I'll pick you up at 8 p.m., he said cheerfully and left. "Already, darling?" Eva laughed. "Your jokes are going to make my jaw ache." "We'll fix your jaw. And, of course, you are darling. After all, I've already spent an incredible amount of money and time on you." Jorge pretended to be horrified. And before she could even think about it, he made scary eyes and said, "I have already calculated the total cost for the whole time we'll be together." "And how much?" Eva wondered. "Time or money?" Jorge smiled. Both. Forever and infinity. We'll be with you forever, and I'll endlessly spend the money for you, Jorge grinned sourly. But, he exclaimed at once, avoiding Eva's sarcastic comment. But I will do it with great pleasure. At the same time, but in another city, the city abandoned by Eva, Crispin became depressed. He didn't show up for work for 3 days. Locked himself in his apartment, drank strong drinks, and did not want to see anyone. Where is Crispin? Natalia Alvarez, a slender, attractive head of the sales office, asked. Perhaps she could even be called beautiful if it were not for the eternally strict expression on her concentrated face. Crispin's wife broke up with him, Leisha, who was always the first to hear about all the news, reported. He's depressed and drinks all the time. Really? Natalia, who had just returned from vacation, raised her eyebrows. I'll have to apply disciplinary punishment when he gets back to work. Did you hear? Leisha said in the office. If any of us had been drinking for 3 days, we would have been fired immediately, all of us. And for him only a disciplinary punishment, this bitch is in love. Natalia was really in love with Crispin, and she realized it. She didn't just want to have fun, to have a little fling, but she was really suffering. Natalia was proud of the fact that she was completely self-made, without rich relatives, without the right connections. Without money or influential lovers, she reached her current high-ranking position. It was not that easy to be the head of the central sales office of a big car dealer at the age of 30. When she, a newly appointed manager, was recruiting her first team and saw Crispin at the interview, a tall, slim guy, with a beautiful noble face and big blue eyes, it was like an electric shock. It happens that women like a certain type of man, it's like he was imprinted somewhere in the subcortex. And at the right moment, a switch is turned on, and you realize that this is your man. Natalia wished she could get rid of this obsession, especially when she found out her lover was married. But she couldn't. At first, Crispin didn't understand what was going on. In general, men don't tend to analyze women's quirks, especially when that woman is their boss. But, as time went on, he began to understand something. And when at the last New Year's Eve party she openly flirted with him, promising to make him her first deputy, anyone would have understood. So when the bell rang in his empty and broken apartment, Crispin opened the door and saw his boss in love on the threshold. He was not surprised. "What can I do for you?" he muttered, swaying a little. "You look awful," she said, instead of saying hello, brazenly slipped through the door and sat down on the couch, looking around at the spectacle of the debacle and the 3-day drunkenness. "Well," Natalia said in an iron tone. "Now you're going to take a shower, wash all this shit off you, throw out all the leftover alcohol, and call the staff to clean up. Then you're going to take some aspirin and go to bed, and when you've had a good night's sleep, you're going to get to work. Let's say no later than noon tomorrow. Maybe then I'll think about keeping your position. Do you understand?" "Yes," Crispin answered, smiling stupidly and blinking. "I think so. See you at the office, Crispin." She said goodbye and left the apartment, very pleased with herself. The next day Crispin was in the office. After all, being dependent on anything is a scary thing. An apartment or a house, an expensive car, all bought with a loan, which must be paid regularly. Otherwise, you will lose both the money and your property. Debt enslavement for life, running in circles with a noose around your neck. As if reading his gloomy thoughts, Natalia, in whose office he had already been sitting for 15 minutes, waiting for the verdict, mockingly said, "Well, Crispin, did you have time to think about all the terrible consequences of your misdeed?" Almost, he looked up at her. "Except for one thing." "What?" The boss was interested. "I want to quit my job." She raised her eyebrows in shock. "Are you serious?" He was stubbornly silent. Natalia also remained silent for a while and then softened her tone. "Crispin, I understand you are upset by your family drama." And seeing that he jerked, as if by electric shock, continued quickly, before he had time to interrupt. "Yes, secrets cannot stay secrets for a long time, unfortunately. but I can help you to avoid having to write an explanation, endure a reprimand, and so on. What should I do? Crispin asked tiredly. Just take me out to dinner, Natalia smiled triumphantly. He looked at her long and seemingly contemptuously. However, she withstood his gaze and didn't even blush. All right, Crispin finally nodded. Tonight? Friday, Natalia said. You were absent for a good reason. You went to the head office for a conference, right? Yes, Crispin nodded, frowning. Well, then, see you on Friday. And do not forget to bring a full report, Natalia said in front of her assistant Irma, who came into the office and brought coffee. The fancy restaurant where they had a meeting was full on that Friday night. Crispin remembered with longing how he came here with Eva. By a wicked irony of fate, Natalia had booked that particular, their favorite table behind the curtain in the alcove of the low window. Why, out of 8 such secluded nooks, did she get that one? Crispin took a deep breath and stepped toward his new destiny. Oh, he was well aware of what was required of him and what the lady boss expected of him. Why am I so lucky to have such a boss? He thought, cursing to himself. However, that evening Natalia didn't look like a boss. She was just a nice, beautiful, pleasant girl. Even her eternal grimace of dissatisfaction had smoothed out tonight, giving way to joyful anticipation. After the first greetings and a glass of champagne, Crispin got a little drunk. Probably the amount of booze he'd consumed earlier this week hadn't fully decomposed into molecules inside him yet. He squinted slyly and said, looking her straight in the eye, You do want us to get out of here now, don't you? That can be arranged. After all, I'm a man. An offended man. Unjustly offended, by the way. Aren't you afraid I'll hurt you, too? No, I'm not afraid, Natalia answered calmly. Because I love you. Crispin was taken aback by this. He expected anything but a declaration of love, and immediately sobered up enough to refuse further drinking. And Natalia, not feeling embarrassed or turning her eyes away, continued. I've been in love with you for a long time, you know? Since the first time we met, since the first time we saw each other. And I am not ashamed to admit it just because I am a woman and your boss. Real feelings are not something to be ashamed of. I agree, Crispin said quietly. So, just to be clear, I really want to leave the restaurant with you tonight, with all the consequences, she grinned sadly. But I don't want to be a burden to you, to impose my feelings and my company. You probably think that I'm like a medieval baroness who decided to take advantage of my position and force you into intimacy. In that case, you do not know me very well. Crispin wanted to object, but she shook her head vigorously, signaling him to be quiet. I have been silent for too long, let me speak, please. It sounded almost pleading and was very flattering to Crispin, as well as everything he heard next. So, my feelings for you will not change, no matter what, you know? It happens in life. I know for a fact that I will always love you, whether we are together or not, whether you reciprocate or turn your back on me. You can even hurt me, humiliate me, trample me in the mud, and I will still love you. Natalia was almost crying, her eyes full of tears, but she kept stubbornly raising her head to hide it. Your wife didn't love you, believe me, otherwise, she wouldn't have done that. She liked you, it was obvious. I mean, how is it possible not to like such a handsome and smart guy? But you weren't rich enough for her, not powerful enough. And she's a high-flying bird, she won't be satisfied with less. But to me, you're the best. I'm not a rich girl like your ex, I'm a simple country girl who made it all by herself. And honesty is what people value most in my village. That's why I'm telling you the truth as it is. Sometimes I think I loved you in a past life and the life before that. If you give me a chance to prove it to you, I'll try very hard. Crispin was silent in shock for the umpteenth time. Natalia, he finally said, though his lips were trembling. I didn't know, I didn't think. Forgive me, please, he murmured softly, looking away. I have nothing to forgive you for, Crispin, Natalia said firmly. Now you know everything, and it is up to you to decide my fate." She got up and walked away past the tables and didn't even look back. "Fabulous woman," Crispin muttered to himself, leaning back in the comfortable chair. "Just terrific." At 1 a.m. Natalia was already in her bed, hoping to fall asleep. But sleep did not come to her. She didn't cry, didn't lament her fate, didn't ponder how things would go on. But she just lay there and stared at one point at the distant light of some tall building, glittering like a beacon in the night outside the dark windows of her apartment. Suddenly the doorbell rang through the silence. Natalia's heart started beating loudly. She immediately understood everything, got out of bed, and went out into the corridor, not hurrying, cautiously, afraid to scare her fate. The door lock clicked, soft whispers were heard, then the sound of a kiss, and sobs. The night united them and made them lovers. The night hid their passionate secret from everyone for months. At work, they behaved as usual and no one suspected anything unusual. Almost no one but Leisha. "Have you girls noticed how our witch's eyes light up?" she asked the staff. "I'm sure she has a lover." Crispin and Natalia were incredibly happy. Crispin had not even expected how much this woman would match him. During these few months, he had almost stopped thinking about Eva, absorbed by his new passion. Only occasionally, in his rare moments of lazy relaxation, did the image of his wife visit him. His heart clenched with the pain he had endured, stabbing somewhere in his throat, and soon she reminded him of the years they had spent together. Not in person, no. She sent a lawyer. Crispin signed the papers without looking. He knew it would happen sooner or later. As a result, the apartment, which he bought with a mortgage, was left to him, all alone, too. Eva's tumultuous romance was rapidly developing. Oh, and this new romance was good. With the velvet eyes of a Hollywood actor, her new suitor almost eclipsed the memories of her unfaithful spouse. He gave her back her joy of life, and her thirst for adventure kindled a fire and lit new hopes. The pregnancy went smoothly, almost imperceptibly, without complications or problems. The first toxicosis had long since passed, and she and Jorge did not deny themselves small cautious pleasures. "We should get married," he told her once, kissing her tenderly on the lips. "Isn't it a little early?" "I'm married," Eva joked, as usual. "No," Jorge answered firmly and seriously, against his usual tone. "The baby is coming, and I do not want our baby to ask questions later." "Our baby?" Eva looked him in the eye. "Yes, our baby. It's our baby, yours and mine. I don't care who the biological father was. And if you and I have more children, won't you regret your decision?" Eva wanted to be clear. "No, I wouldn't. Besides, we won't have any more children." "Why not?" Eva wondered. "Don't you want more?" "I'm infertile," Jorge said. "The result of an infection I had in my youth. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner." "Everyone has skeletons in the closet," Eva said understandingly. Jorge was able to organize everything in a very short period of time. By the way, it turned out that financially he was not only on the same level as Eva, but even better. He was the owner of the hospital where they had met. He needed the practice so he wouldn't lose his qualifications and his medical license. Eva liked it a lot. What she had always lacked in Crispin was this kind of reliable thoroughness. Not even the money, but the feeling that you are behind your man, as a stone wall, that he will always protect you. And if you want, you can be weak, irresponsible, even silly, and not think about anything, and you don't have to make any decisions. Jorge gave her everything and even more than that. Eva's second wedding was completely different from the first, no annoying relatives, no boring ceremonies. They filed the necessary paperwork to register their marriage, but they arranged for an off-site ceremony in a beautiful place. It turned out to be possible, obviously, for an extra fee. Eva rejoiced like a little girl and felt like a queen. Pretty fat queen, but Jorge loved it. He was delighted with his unexpected fatherhood and said that Eva had been sent to him by heaven as an angel who had forgiven him all his sins. Everything, absolutely everything in Eva's life was now arranged and provided for. Previously, she had to take care of most of the household chores, making travel arrangements, buying tickets, driving the car to the car service, arguing with the construction workers, and much more. Crispin also participated as much as he could, but he preferred to leave for work early in the morning and lie on the couch in the evening, reading and watering the plants sometimes. Eva informed her parents of her new marriage when it had already taken place. Jorge and Eva recorded a video for them and invited them to come visit Jorge's big house. Eva also bought real estate in this city, as she was going the spacious apartment in a luxury residential complex under construction with a view of the bay. Eva's father really liked the new son-in-law. "There is no doubt he's a real man," he told his daughter. The mother cried tears of joy when she found out that soon she would be a grandmother. But Eva didn't tell her anything about the real father of her future grandchild. A few months after the wedding, Eva gave birth to a beautiful, healthy baby girl quickly and easily. "Can I name her myself?" Jorge asked his wife, happy and proud. "Well, you can try." Eva laughed. "What if I like it? I would like to name her after my mother. It's a rare and very beautiful name." "Tell me already," Eva demanded with a smile. "Melania," Jorge said and looked at his wife. "How do you like it?" "It is very beautiful." Eva admired it. That year, Natalia and Crispin also registered their relationship and finally publicly disclosed it, although it had long been a secret for the whole team. Another year later, they had a baby, also a girl. The happy parents named her Milagros. So the two girls with similar names grew up far apart. They were sisters by their father, but they didn't know about each other. And they would probably never know each other, but fate, which rules everything, had a different plan. "Melania, where are you? Hurry up. We are already late." The stern mother, dressed in black silk, still very beautiful, was hurrying her daughter. The family was going to the theater for the premiere of the play. "Where's Daddy?" "Daddy's waiting for us there." "Let's go, for God's sake." "Oh, Mom, wait. I left my purse upstairs." "Melania." Eva got angry. "Go, I'll wait in the car." A gray-haired, elegant man smoked nervously at the entrance to the theater. "Where are they?" "They're about to give the last call." His phone rang in his pocket. "Don't tell me you're stuck in traffic. You should have left earlier." "What happened?" "What are you talking about?" "Take her to the 9th hospital immediately. I'm on my way too." Mora Torres, the lead oncologist, looked at the frightened parents. "At this point, it is too early to make any prognosis. We have to wait for the results of the biopsy. However, there is a certain tendency in the leukocytic form." "Has she complained recently of fatigue or headaches? Any history of dizziness? Fainting?" "No," Eva cried, nervously squeezing her husband's hand. "Yes, she was tired sometimes, but that's normal, isn't it? The final year of school, the final exams besides, she draws all the time, day and night. Perhaps complicated anemia?" Jorge looked hopefully at the doctor. "You know that I can't draw any conclusions yet. To make a diagnosis you have to." I know. Jorge waved his hands. "Sorry, it's parent syndrome, of course, you're right. Let's hope for the best," the doctor said, and try to comfort the girl. "It's the best and the right thing you can do now." And they hoped. They hoped all the days while they waited for the results of the examination. They took turns sitting by their daughter's bedside, joking, reading aloud to her, and bringing her oranges and Swiss chocolate. And huge armfuls of flowers. That was Daddy's effort. "My princess," he told her, "you will get well. Listen to Daddy. Daddy is a doctor. Daddy knows." His daughter finished laughing and hugged him. "Of course, Daddy, don't worry." Melania grew up a very creative person and was not deprived of anything, neither parental love nor material possessions, and the attention of her peers. From the age of 6, she attended the art school, and after school, she was going to enroll in the faculty she had chosen. Fortunately, there was no shortage of such educational institutions in her native city. She was a talented painter. All the qualities of Melania's nature were obvious at once. No one had ever seen a more obedient, affectionate, and gentle child. She never argued, never resented, or complained. She was often silent, never tried to defend her point of view, and never fell into that strange changeable mood common to teenagers when they reached awful adolescence. Everything was always smooth, perfect. "Just wait, she'll show her strong personality," Jorge promised his wife. "It's just not the time yet." "It's not the time yet," Eva thought as she sat by her daughter's bedside. "Doesn't Melania have that time anymore?" Finally, all the necessary tests were done, and the doctors came up with a final, ruthless verdict. Unfortunately, the worst predictions had come true. The girl had leukemia. That is, in simple terms, blood cancer. "Is this the end?" Eva sobbed into her husband's shoulder. "No, do you hear me?" He shook her, forcing her to calm down. "Nonsense, this is not the end. It is the beginning. The beginning of our long and successful fight. Do you understand, sweetheart? Successful. The main thing is to believe in a good outcome. We will win this battle." "But you don't even believe it." Eva was hysterical. "Who told you that I don't? I believe." "Mom, Dad, go home." Melania persuaded them. "You need to get some rest. They take good care of me here." What a kind soul. She is suffering so much, but still trying to take care of her parents. The nurses and doctors admired her. Let the girl get well soon. Everyone loved her, relatives, friends, teachers, and tutors. The boys admired her, and her grandfather, Eva's father, was ready to do anything for his only granddaughter. But love alone was not enough. A bone marrow transplant was needed. Even close relatives sometimes are not a match as donors, the doctor explained. Compatibility of this kind of biological material is a complicated task. We will take samples from everyone who could potentially be a donor. Eva, her mother, and her father made tests of samples of biological material. Even Jorge did it, although he and Eva knew very well that it was useless. Eventually, it turned out that no one was a match. Eva felt absolutely terrible. She had lost so much weight in the last dreadful month that she no longer looked like a beautiful middle-aged lady, but a frightened old woman. Jorge had lost weight and turned gray, too. What depressed them most was the necessity of this agonizing expectation and the uncertainty. How much longer could Melania wait? This kind of cancer is unpredictable. The worst could happen at any moment. Eva tried not to even think about it, but these thoughts kept creeping into her head. They prevented her from breathing, from living, from hoping. Another month passed, and then another. By spring, Melania was almost translucent and could barely lift her head from the pillow. Eva turned black with grief and tears, and, seeing no other options, decided to take drastic measures. "Hello. Are you looking for someone?" Natalia opened the door, coming out at the insistent ringing of the bell at the gate. "We do not need anything if you are selling something." "I'm Eva." The unexpected visitor didn't take long to explain herself. "I need to see Crispin on a very urgent matter." "Are you Eva?" Natalia looked at her face. "You've had a tough life," she said, looking at her exhausted face, but without anger. All the anger was long gone. "Come in, please." She opened the gate. "He is not here now, but he should be back soon." "Thank you." Eva took off her coat and tried to find something in her bag. "My phone. I must have left it in the cab." But the phone was in her coat pocket. When she found it, she calmed down a little. She clutched it in her hands as a pledge of peaceful negotiation and sat down on the edge of her chair. "Please make yourself at home," Natalia said. "Would you like tea or coffee?" "Coffee, please," Eva asked, smiling weakly. "How did you find us?" Natalia asked as she handed her a cup of coffee. "Oh, this is my husband," Eva said absent-mindedly. "He's the kind of guy who can find anything." "Did he come with you?" "No, he's at home with our daughter. Our daughter is seriously ill." Eva covered her face with her hands and sat like that for a few seconds, trembling. "Please, calm down," Natalia tried to comfort her. "Yes, sure. You're right," Eva agreed, nervously twitching in her chair. A knock on the door interrupted her torment. "Here I am." It was Crispin, a little older, but not much different. "Natalia, hello, sweetheart. I'm sorry, I didn't know you had a guest," he just noticed Eva. "Yes, we have a guest," Natalia agreed. "Only a guest is waiting for you." "Hello, Crispin," Eva got up to greet him. "It is good to see you." "Eva." He stood as if struck by a thunderbolt and even seemed to stagger a little. "What are you doing here?" "Crispin, forgive me, please," she spoke quickly, not letting him say a word. She was very afraid that he would kick her out without even listening. "I'm sorry, I was too upset at the time for any kind of explanation, but none of that matters anymore." At these words, Natalia, who was standing very close by, nodded her head in agreement. But not Crispin. He literally exploded. "It doesn't matter? Doesn't matter? So that's what you call it? Escaping without any explanation from your family for no reason, it doesn't matter?" Natalia looked at him in horror and her lips trembled, and Eva only lowered her head slightly, waiting for the first flash of anger to subside. "Yes, it doesn't matter," she said firmly. "We all have different lives now, different families. But I came to tell you. "What?" Crispin shouted angrily and ironically. "What is so important you're finally going to tell me?" "That you have a daughter," Eva answered. "And she has cancer." Crispin collapsed on the couch, gulping air like a fish. Eva continued to stand silently, looking slightly to the side and at the floor. Natalia, white as chalk, also stood a little away, with her arms crossed over her chest. A few seconds passed like that, maybe more. Soon the oppressive silence was interrupted by the clatter of quick light feet, and a girl of about 16 came down the stairs. Short in stature, fragile, graceful as a ballerina, with a cheerful gleam in her deep eyes. "Mom, Dad, hi. Oh, you have guests?" And embarrassed, she wanted to go upstairs to her room. "Don't leave, dear. Now we're going to have dinner," her mother stopped her. "And Daddy's leaving. He has to take our friend home. This is Milagros, our daughter. And this is Eva, she used to work with Daddy." "Yes, of course, I have to take her home," Crispin fussed. "Have dinner without me, okay? I'll be right back." "What's going on, Mom?" Milagros asked, as the front door closed behind her father and the strange woman. "I don't know exactly yet, kiddo," the mother answered and affectionately patted her daughter's blonde hair. "But I promise you we'll figure it out. She can't be Daddy's mistress, can she?" Milagros asked, just in case. "No, don't worry about that," her mother looked at her carefully. "This woman has a very sick daughter, about your age. So she came to ask Daddy for money?" "I see," the girl reasoned in her own way. "If only money's," Natalia thought and sighed. "By the way, Mom, we're going to the capital soon," she told her mother with a full mouth. "Olga said there will be an international championship. Isn't it cool? I am sure you will get one of the prizes." "Well, no." The daughter became indignant. "We only need first place." Crispin and Eva stood by the gate in an awkward silence. Eventually, Eva could not stand it. "Did you hear what I said?" "Yes," Crispin nodded. "But I didn't understand. So you not only left me but also lied to me?" "As far as I remember, it was you who lied to me," and old resentment was suddenly reawakened in Eva. "But, again," she said, realizing the reality, "we have much worse circumstances now. Our daughter is terminally ill, and nothing else matters." Let's take a cab and go somewhere to talk, Crispin suggested. It seems like we have a lot to figure out. What is our daughter's name? He asked, finding himself in front of Eva at a table in a small suburban cafe. Melania. Eva smiled weakly. I'll show you. She handed him a smartphone. Look. She looks a lot like my mother. Crispin exclaimed. The eyes, the hair, the silhouette. She's your daughter, Eva agreed sadly, and she has a lot of your blood in her. That's what I wanted to talk about. She needs your help with a bone marrow transplant. Our biological material didn't fit. I'll pack, Crispin said, getting up. What time is the next flight? At 8 in the morning, I looked at the schedule. Thank you, Crispin. For what? She's my daughter. And you're right, nothing else matters. So, meet me at the check-in counter at 7 o'clock. See you tomorrow. But sitting next to each other in the plane seats, Crispin could not stand it and asked, Why did you leave then, Eva? Why? I came home, approached the door, and I heard you talking loudly in the hallway, telling someone how annoyed you are with me and how you want my plane to crash, Eva answered him with a sad smile. What? He looked at her in shock. What nonsense? How could I? Then he remembered something and looked at her dazedly. No. What, Crispin? It wasn't about you. Really? She said indifferently. Yes. I was talking about Natalia. And he told her everything as it really was. About the endless hints from the boss who was now his wife, and how it had pissed him off then, and about his distress after losing Eva, about his anger, frustration, and despair. How he tried to find her, and went to morgues and hospitals. How he did not understand what was going on. Finally, he got tired and fell asleep, turning his head toward the window. But Eva didn't sleep. She had hardly slept at all for months. She wondered what her daughter's life would have been like if Eva hadn't heard that stupid phone call. Another disappointment awaited them at the hospital. After long days of waiting for the results, it turned out that Crispin's material was no good either, although there was no doubt about his paternity. Crispin decided to stay in a hotel near the hospital to be nearby just in case. He visited Melania every day, bringing books, fruit, and other stuff, even though Melania was literally melting before his eyes and hardly ate anything. Eva, he said one day when she came out of the room. I realize that she doesn't need all this excitement right now. But he shuddered, and his voice sounded husky. If Melania. Then we will tell her, Crispin, Eva promised him, closing her eyes tiredly. We will if we have time. Sorry, there's one more thing. Yes. She half turned to Crispin, and in the diffused light of the corridor lamp, he suddenly saw the other Eva, whom he had loved so much many, many years ago. Milagros and her dance group are coming to the competition today. They're having an international tournament, and I'm going to spend some time with her. Sure, no problem, Eva nodded. You don't need my permission. Just so you know. Just in case. Their hotel is on the other side of the city. Melania was lying in such a white space that it was impossible to see where the walls ended and where the ceiling began. Even the windows were almost invisible. Did they put white paint over it? She thought with anger. But then she realized, oh, right, I'm sick. I'm sure my eyesight is failing. How much longer would I have to lie like this? Wouldn't it be better to end it now? I'm so tired. And she covered her eyes to give them some rest and not to stare anymore into this shiny, disgustingly clean, sterile whiteness. And when she opened her eyes again, right in front of her, she saw the same creature that she had painted many times. Yes, it was definitely an angel. He was sitting with his head resting on his hands, looking at her with huge blue eyes. Hello, the ghostly creature said and smiled. Hello, Melania whispered back with cracked lips and added, I'm thirsty. Wait a second, the creature fussed and pulled out a glass of water from the whiteness. But how will you drink? It asked sadly, noticing the tube sticking out of Melania's nostrils and the corner of her mouth. A sponge, Melania said faintly. What a silly angel, she thought. After all, it lives in a hospital. The angel obeyed and, wetting the sponge, brought it to Melania's lips. Here, drink this. Just be careful. Better? Melania nodded weakly. She wished she could sleep now, close her eyes again, and fall into the bottomless blackness it absorbed her, called out to her. What is your name? The silly angel kept her awake. Melania, the girl whispered, barely audible. Oh, that's nice. And my name is Milagros. Very similar names, right? Instead of answering, Melania just closed and opened her eyes again. Milagros, what are you doing here? Her father came into the room, clearly upset about something. Come, you shouldn't be here. They went down the hall. How on earth did you get here from another ward? They sent me to X-ray, the daughter fought back. They told me to go through B wing, through the airy tunnel to room 25. That's a different building. It's not an X-ray room, it's where they treat the critically ill patients. And why are you here? Why would you be in this sick girl's room? Milagros asked suspiciously. And then she saw Eva coming out of the elevator. Hello, I recognized you. You came to our house, you asked Daddy to help you. Eva looked at Milagros and Crispin in confusion, but she didn't say anything. She just shrugged her shoulders. Come on, let's take you to the X-ray, and Crispin took his daughter to the elevator. You have to tell me everything, Milagros insisted. I sense that something is not right here. Who is this girl? And why are you here? And why do you know this hospital so well? Mama said you were here on a long business trip. That's right, Crispin said, anxiously thinking about what he could say. His youngest daughter, as it turned out now, had badly sprained her leg at last night's performance. And there was even a suspicion that the bone was broken. So she was hospitalized at the same hospital where Melania was. He asked Eva himself, so he wouldn't have to drive across the whole city. And Milagros with an injured leg somehow managed to get lost in the hospital and accidentally wandered into the room of her sister, who she didn't even know. This girl had been giving her parents a hard time since she was a little girl, always getting into trouble. They had experienced everything with her. Her temper was certainly not her father's. She inherited the burning, tough and uncompromising nature of her mother, Natalia. Now she will not leave me alone, Crispin complained to Eva. All she keeps saying is, Melania this and Melania that. And she demands to take her back to her room. Maybe it's for the best. At least they'll get to know each other. Eva answered weakly and indifferently, completely exhausted. In the evening, Crispin found his youngest daughter in Melania's room again. Strangely enough, both girls were laughing. Milagros was always ready to have some fun. But Melania could barely breathe, she almost lost her concentration, and yet, she was laughing too, quietly, barely audible, but visibly. She says her parents call her Melania, Milagros told her father when she saw him in the room. And I'm Milagros. Our names are very similar. And the girl laughed again. Darling, Melania is tired, she needs peace. Let's go. And Crispin wanted to take the youngest daughter away again. No, suddenly it sounded from the bed. No, she wants me to stay, Milagros shrieked. And I will stay. Crispin stepped back and watched in silence as his daughters, the healthy and the dying, talked to each other. Tears came to his eyes. In the evening, Milagros told him, also with tears. I heard what the nurses were saying. Melania has cancer, she is dying. Is there a way to help her, Daddy? She needs a bone marrow transplant. It's a complicated and dangerous procedure. Besides, not every bone marrow material will match. They're going to take a living person's entire brain? Milagros was shocked. No. Just a little, as much as you can fit into a syringe. A few thousand cells, it is quite insignificant. But if it adapts to the patient's body, there is a chance of recovery. Can I give her mine? Milagros suddenly asked. Yours? Crispin was surprised at the thought. I don't know. I will ask the doctors. Milagros promised. I really want Melania to get better. In the office of the head doctor, physicians and relatives had a lively conversation. The bone marrow of a sibling could certainly fit. Moreover, it's the same young growing body. No, Natalia resisted. She's just a child herself. You can't take her biological material without my consent. So we asked for your consent, Melania's parents replied humbly. Please understand us, she is our daughter. We would be happy to give our biological material, but it doesn't match. How did the girls even get to know each other? Natalia persisted. Don't get me wrong, but I am also a mother and I also care about my daughter's health. Well, the procedure is a little painful, the oncologist said. But I can assure you it is absolutely safe. If the material fits, how much will you need to take? We need about 3 procedures. About 30 milliliters each time, the doctor replied. She wants it herself, Natalia, Crispin said quietly. And I don't think we have the right to stop her. 2 years have passed. A solo exhibition by the promising young artist Melania Sanchez was opening in one of the capital's art galleries. The public crowded in front of the central painting of the exhibition, a beautiful angel with snow-white, translucent wings, huge blue eyes, and a handful of light in her folded palms sits by the hospital bed, where a dying patient is lying. She stretches her palms to the lips of the hopelessly ill girl, and it seems that in front of the audience, the liquid light flows into the open mouth of the lying girl. The artist herself with a short haircut is standing a little away, and a young girl in a white linen sundress with long blonde hair is standing next to her. Tell me, what are your impressions of the exhibition? A newspaper reporter with a microphone walked up to a tall man with the same blue eyes as the youngest of the girls. My impressions? The man thought for a moment. You know, he finally said. All of this was only possible thanks to one person. He approached a girl with long blonde hair and said to her, Milagros, look at us, please. The girl turned around, looking at everyone with laughing eyes, and the reporter managed to take a picture of her. Later, this picture of the 2 completely different girls in front of a large painting of them at a different time and place will win a prestigious international competition. And the title will be simple, Sisters.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe.